Every day you fight battles you cannot see. There is no noise, no movement, no visible opponent, and yet these battles decide your confidence, your focus, your emotions, and the direction of your life. This is the mental battlefield, and whether you realize it or not, you are already in it. Your mind is not a neutral space. It is active, constantly interpreting, judging, predicting, and reacting. Thoughts rise automatically. Some empower you. Many undermine you. Most people live at the mercy of this process, believing their thoughts are facts, instructions, or reflections of reality. This belief is the reason so many people feel mentally exhausted, anxious, distracted, or stuck. To master your thoughts, you must first understand the nature of the battlefield. The mind evolved to protect you, not to make you happy. Its primary function is survival. It scans for threat, recalls past pain, and anticipates future danger. In the modern world, this survival system is overstimulated. Problems are rarely life-threatening, yet the mind reacts as if everything is urgent, personal, and dangerous. This is why your mind often works against you. Negative thoughts do not mean you are broken. They mean your survival system is active. The issue is not that thoughts appear. The issue is that you believe them without question. The mental battlefield is not about eliminating thoughts. That is impossible. It is about changing your relationship to them. Most people think the battle is between positive and negative thoughts. That is not true. The real battle is between awareness and identification. When you identify with every thought, it controls you. When you become aware of thoughts, they lose authority. Awareness is the first form of mastery. Every thought is an event, not a command. But the mind presents thoughts with urgency and emotion, making them feel absolute. A thought says you are failing. You will mess this up. This will not work. People will judge you. And the body reacts instantly. Tension rises. Confidence drops. Focus scatters. This reaction happens before logic enters. Understanding this changes how you fight mental battles. You stop arguing with thoughts and start observing them. You stop trying to overpower the mind and start outgrowing it. The battlefield exists because the mind speaks in extremes. It exaggerates, threat minimizes strength, and replays past mistakes as warnings. This pattern was once useful. Today it creates unnecessary suffering. Mental mastery begins when you stop treating every thought as truth. This does not mean you ignore your mind. It means you evaluate it. There are three forces constantly interacting in the mental battlefield: thought, emotion, and attention. Thought triggers emotion. Emotion pulls attention. Attention feeds thought. This loop continues until awareness interrupts it. When you are unaware, the loop runs you. When you are aware, you run the loop. Most mental battles are lost because attention is hijacked. You focus on what you fear, what you lack, or what went wrong. The mind interprets attention as importance. Whatever you focus on grows stronger. Mastering your thoughts begins with mastering attention. Where attention goes, energy follows. Where energy flows, patterns form. Where patterns form, identity follows. This is why mental discipline shapes who you become. The battlefield is also internal because your mind often has conflicting voices. One part wants growth. Another wants comfort. One part wants discipline. Another wants escape. These voices are not enemies. They are survival strategies developed at different times in your life. Mental mastery does not silence these voices. It understands them. When you understand why a thought appears, it loses its grip. Fear-based thoughts are often trying to protect you from imagined danger. Doubt tries to prevent failure. Overthinking tries to regain control. These strategies are outdated but persistent. Winning mental battles is not about aggression. It is about clarity. Clarity allows you to see that thoughts are temporary. They rise, peak, and fall, if not fed. When you feed them with attention and belief, they linger. When you observe them, they pass. The battlefield feels intense because thoughts feel personal. They speak in your voice. They use your history. They target your insecurities. This makes them convincing. But convincing does not mean correct. A powerful shift happens when you stop saying "this thought is me" and start saying "this thought is happening." This separation is the foundation of mental mastery. Another truth about the mental battlefield is that resistance strengthens thoughts. Fighting thoughts gives them energy. Trying to force positivity often creates frustration. Suppression leads to rebound. Mastery is not force. It is skill. Skill allows you to choose which thoughts deserve attention and which do not. You stop wrestling and start redirecting. The battlefield also exists in time. Thoughts pull you into past regret or future fear. Rarely do they keep you in the present. Yet the present is where power lives. In the present, you can act, decide, and adjust. In the past and future, you can only imagine. Mental mastery returns you to now. When you are present, thoughts lose urgency. They become background noise rather than commands. You respond to what is real, not what is imagined. This is why calm and mental strength are connected. Calm gives you space. Space gives you choice. Understanding the mental battlefield also means recognizing that you cannot win every thought. Some thoughts will appear repeatedly. This is not failure. It is biology. Victory is not absence of thoughts. Victory is not being ruled by them. You win a mental battle every time you notice a thought without obeying it. Every time you pause before reacting. Every time you choose focus over rumination. These small victories compound. Over time, your mind learns new patterns. Thoughts lose intensity. Emotional reactions soften. Focus strengthens. This is not because life becomes easier. It is because you become more skilled. Mental mastery is not a destination. It is a practice. You do not control thoughts by domination. You control them by relationship. The relationship shifts from obedience to leadership. You become the observer, the chooser, the director. As this audiobook continues, you will learn how to break negative loops, how to strengthen, focus, how to regulate emotion through thought, discipline, and how to reprogram the inner dialogue that shapes your reality. But it all begins here. Understanding that your mind is a battlefield, not because it is broken, but because it is powerful. And power, when untrained, becomes chaotic. Train it. And the same mind that once sabotaged you will become your greatest ally. At some point, almost everyone asks the same question in different forms. Why do I sabotage myself? Why do I overthink? Why does my mind make things harder than they need to be? It feels personal, as if the mind is working against you. In many ways it is. But not because it is broken or malicious. It is because it is outdated. Your mind was not designed for peace, clarity, or happiness. It was designed for survival. Long before modern life existed, your mind's primary job was to keep you alive. To detect danger, remember pain, and avoid risk. Anything unfamiliar, uncertain, or unpredictable was treated as a threat. That survival programming is still running. In today's world, most threats are psychological, not physical. Deadlines, expectations, comparison, rejection, uncertainty, and failure activate the same internal alarms that predators once did. The mind reacts with fear, urgency, and doubt, even when no real danger exists. This is why your mind often feels like an enemy. It is constantly scanning for what could go wrong. It replays past mistakes as warnings, imagines future problems as preparation. It highlights flaws to prevent embarrassment or rejection. From the mind's perspective, this is protection. From your perspective, it feels like sabotage. Understanding this changes how you approach mental mastery. You stop taking negative thoughts personally. You stop identifying with them as truth. You begin to see them as outdated protective signals firing in a modern environment. Fear-based thinking is not a flaw. It is a function. The problem is not that the mind generates fear. The problem is that it has not learned when to stop. Your mind works against you when you allow it to run without awareness. It fills silence with worry. It fills uncertainty with worst-case scenarios. It fills stillness with noise. This happens automatically. The mind prefers certainty over peace. It would rather give you a painful story than leave you in the unknown. This is why it often jumps to negative conclusions. Negativity feels safer than uncertainty. Another reason your mind works against you is familiarity. The mind prefers what is familiar, even if it is painful. Known suffering feels safer than unknown possibility. This is why people repeat the same thought patterns, behaviors, and emotional reactions even when they want change. The mind protects patterns, not progress. Change represents uncertainty. Uncertainty represents risk. So the mind resists growth by generating doubt, fear, and hesitation. It says this is dangerous, this might fail, stay where you are. This resistance is not laziness, it is survival instinct. Your mind also works against you because it confuses thought with reality. Thoughts feel real because they trigger emotional and physical responses. When a thought says you are not good enough, your body reacts as if this is a fact. Heart rate changes, muscles tense, confidence drops. The body does not know the difference between a thought and a threat. This is why mental battles feel intense. They're not just intellectual, they are physiological. Winning them requires regulation, not argument. Another factor is repetition. Thoughts that repeat gain authority. The more a thought appears, the more familiar it becomes. Familiarity feels like truth. Over time, repeated thoughts form beliefs. Beliefs shape identity. Many people are not fighting thoughts. They're fighting beliefs formed from unchallenged thoughts. The mind also works against you by narrowing attention. Under stress, attention collapses around perceived threat. You lose perspective. Options disappear. Everything feels urgent and personal. This tunnel vision makes problems feel bigger than they are. Calm restores perspective. Awareness widens attention. Your mind also operates on comparison, constantly measures you against others to determine status, safety, and belonging. In the modern world, this comparison never ends. There is always someone doing more, achieving more, appearing better. Comparison fuels inadequacy. The mind uses comparison to motivate improvement, but often creates discouragement instead. It highlights gaps rather than growth. This keeps you striving but dissatisfied. Another way the mind works against you is by replaying the past. Memory is not neutral. The mind remembers emotional events vividly, especially painful ones. It replays them to prevent repetition. But without awareness, this replay becomes rumination. Rumination keeps you stuck in what cannot be changed. The mind believes that by replaying the past, it is solving something. In reality, it is reinforcing emotional patterns. Awareness breaks this loop. Future thinking also works against you. The mind imagines outcomes to prepare, but it often imagines worst-case scenarios. This creates anxiety in the present for problems that may never occur. Preparation becomes paralysis. Understanding that your mind works against you out of protection, not malice, changes your relationship with it. You stop fighting it. Start training it. Training does not mean silencing the mind. It means teaching it when it is needed and when it is not. It means learning to notice fear without obeying it, doubt without collapsing, urgency without rushing. Mental mastery is leadership. Another important realization is that your mind is reactive by default, but can become responsive through practice. Reactivity is automatic. Responsiveness is learned. The difference is awareness. Awareness creates a pause. In that pause, you regain choice. Your mind also works against you when you believe every thought requires action. Some thoughts are noise. Some are echoes. Some are old fears resurfacing. Not every thought deserves engagement. Choosing not to engage is a form of strength. The mind resists this at first. It wants certainty, resolution, and control. But when you stop feeding every thought, they lose energy. Another subtle way the mind works against you is through identity. Thoughts often say this is who you are. You are anxious. You're bad at this. You always fail. When thoughts define identity, they become heavy. Detaching identity from thought is essential. You are not your thoughts. You are the one noticing them. This realization weakens their grip. Mental battles feel endless when you think the goal is to eliminate negativity. The real goal is to stop being ruled by it. You win not by stopping thoughts, but by staying grounded while they pass. Your mind will always generate content. Mastery is deciding what you invest in. As you continue this audiobook, you will learn practical ways to break thought loops, regulate emotion, strengthen focus, and reprogram inner dialogue. But all of it rests on this understanding. Your mind is not against you because it hates you. It is against you because it is trying to protect you with outdated tools. When you understand this, you stop fighting your mind. You start guiding it. Guidance always wins over force. Most people believe that mastering the mind means controlling thoughts. They try to stop negative thinking, force positive thoughts, or silence the mind entirely. This struggle often makes things worse. The harder they try to control thoughts, the louder those thoughts become. This leads to frustration and the belief that mental mastery is impossible. The truth is simple, but often misunderstood. You do not master your mind by controlling thoughts. You master your mind by becoming aware of them. There is a crucial difference between thought control and thought awareness. Thought control is force-based. It tries to dominate the mind. Thought awareness is skill-based. It understands the mind. Control says this thought should not be here. Awareness says this thought is here and I do not have to obey it. This shift changes everything. Thought control treats the mind like an enemy. Thought awareness treats it like a system that needs guidance. When you try to control thoughts, you create resistance. Resistance strengthens what you are trying to eliminate. When you become aware of thoughts, they naturally lose intensity. Thoughts gain power from two things: attention and belief. If you remove either one, the thought weakens. Awareness removes belief. You see the thought clearly without assuming it is true. Most people suffer not because of what they think, but because they believe what they think. A thought appears and immediately feels personal. It sounds like you. It uses your language. It references your past. It points to your fears. This familiarity makes it convincing. Awareness breaks this illusion by creating distance. You begin to see that thoughts are events happening in the mind, not statements about reality. This does not mean you ignore thoughts. Some thoughts are useful. Awareness allows you to choose which ones deserve attention. When you practice thought awareness, you notice patterns. You notice which thoughts repeat, which thoughts trigger emotion, which thoughts drain energy. This observation gives you insight into how your mind operates. Insight leads to mastery. Thought awareness also prevents emotional escalation. When a thought arises and you believe it, emotion follows instantly. When you observe the thought, emotion softens. The body no longer reacts as strongly because the threat is no longer assumed to be real. This is why awareness regulates emotion better than force. Another important distinction is that thoughts often arise from habit rather than truth. The mind repeats familiar narratives because they are known, not because they are accurate. Awareness allows you to see repetition without reinforcing it. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start noticing that it is happening at all. Thought control often backfires because the mind interprets suppression as danger. When you say, "Do not think this," the mind focuses on it more. Awareness does the opposite. It allows the thought to be present without feeding it. Presence without engagement causes thoughts to pass. This is one of the most important mental skills you can develop. Thought awareness also creates space between stimulus and response. A situation occurs. A thought arises. Normally, reaction follows immediately. Awareness inserts a pause. In that pause, you regain choice. Choice is where freedom lives. You may still choose to act. You may still choose to think. But now it is intentional rather than automatic. Another benefit of awareness is reduced mental fatigue. Fighting thoughts consumes energy. Observing them conserves it. You stop wrestling internally. You let the mind do what it does while you remain grounded. This conservation of energy improves focus and clarity. Thought awareness also strengthens concentration. When you notice your mind wandering, you gently bring it back. You do not punish yourself. You do not judge distraction. You simply redirect. Each redirection strengthens attention. Over time, the mind becomes less scattered, not because you force it, but because you train it. Another powerful aspect of awareness is emotional honesty. You allow thoughts to surface without censorship. This openness prevents buildup. Thoughts that are allowed lose urgency. Thoughts that are suppressed return stronger. Awareness is honesty without identification. You say this thought is here, not this thought is me. This distinction protects identity. Thought awareness also helps you recognize that many thoughts are conditioned responses. They were learned through experience, repetition, and emotion. Seeing this removes shame. You stop blaming yourself for what appears in your mind. Shame strengthens negative thinking. Understanding dissolves it. Another important realization is that awareness does not mean passivity. You are not letting thoughts run unchecked. You are choosing engagement selectively. You engage when thought is useful. You disengage when it is not. This discernment is mastery. You do not need to analyze every thought. Analysis can become another form of rumination. Awareness is lighter. You notice and return to the present. The present moment is the anchor. When attention returns to the present, thoughts lose dominance. They become background noise rather than commands. This does not eliminate thinking. It changes its role. Thought awareness also improves decision-making. You are less impulsive. You notice emotional bias before acting. You wait for clarity. This patience leads to better outcomes. Another key point is that awareness grows through practice, not effort. You practice noticing thoughts during ordinary moments. While walking, while working, while speaking, you notice without interrupting life. This integration makes awareness natural. At first, you may feel like you are noticing thoughts after they have already pulled you in. That is normal. Each moment of noticing is progress. Awareness strengthens gradually. You are not trying to be perfect. You are training a skill. Thought awareness also changes how you experience stress. Stressful thoughts arise, but they do not spiral. You recognize stress as mental activity rather than reality. This recognition reduces intensity. You still respond to challenges, but without panic. Another subtle benefit is increased emotional intelligence. You understand your triggers better. You notice which thoughts lead to which emotions. This insight allows proactive regulation. You begin to catch patterns early. Thought control says, stop thinking this. Thought awareness says, I see this pattern and I will not follow it. This is the difference between struggle and skill. As awareness deepens, thoughts lose authority. They no longer dictate identity or direction. You become the one who chooses where the mind goes. This does not make life perfect. It makes it manageable. Mental battles are won not by silencing the mind, but by stepping out of automatic identification. You stop being inside the storm and start watching it pass. As this part closes, remember this clearly. You do not need to control your thoughts to master your mind. You need to become aware of them. Awareness is calm. Awareness is clarity. Awareness is power. And once awareness is established, the rest of mental mastery becomes possible. Negative thought loops are one of the most draining forces in the mind. They repeat the same ideas again and again, pulling you into worry, self-doubt, regret, or fear. You may recognize the pattern immediately, yet still feel unable to stop it. The same thoughts circle endlessly as if your mind is stuck on a track it cannot leave. These loops are not random. They are habits. The mind forms loops when it believes something is unresolved. It repeats thoughts in an attempt to gain control, certainty, or safety. Unfortunately, repetition does not bring resolution. It only strengthens the loop. The more you think a thought, the more familiar it becomes. The more familiar it becomes, the more real it feels. Breaking negative thought loops does not require force. It requires interruption and redirection. Most people try to break loops by arguing with thoughts. They reason, analyze, and debate internally. This often makes the loop stronger because attention remains locked on the same content. The mind interprets attention as importance. Even negative attention feeds the loop. The first step in breaking a loop is recognizing it as a loop rather than a problem. When you say this is a loop, you stop asking the thought to give you answers. You stop expecting it to resolve itself through repetition. Recognition alone weakens the pattern. Negative loops often have common themes: fear of failure, fear of rejection, regret about the past, anxiety about the future. These themes are tied to survival. The mind believes that by repeating them, it is protecting you. Understanding this removes self-blame. The next step is interruption. Interruption means shifting attention away from the loop and into something grounding. This could be the body breath movement or sensory input. The goal is not distraction, but grounding. You bring attention out of the mind and into the present moment. Grounding breaks momentum. When you interrupt the loop, you may notice resistance. The mind tries to pull you back. This is normal. Loops have momentum. You gently redirect again and again without frustration. Each redirection weakens the loop. Another powerful method is changing the relationship to the thought. Instead of asking, "Is this true?" you ask, "Is this helpful?" Many thoughts may be partially true but still unhelpful. You do not need to resolve them now. This question shifts the goal from certainty to function. Negative loops also thrive on emotional charge. The more emotion attached, the stronger the loop. Regulation reduces charge. Slow breathing, relaxing the body, and softening posture send signals of safety. When the body calms, the loop loses fuel. The mind and body are not separate systems. Another effective technique is naming the loop. You might say, "This is worry, this is rumination, this is self-criticism." Naming creates distance. You are no longer inside the loop. You are observing it. Observation drains power. Negative loops also lose strength when you change time orientation. Loops often pull you into past or future. Bringing attention back to now breaks this pull. You ask, what is actually happening right now? Usually the answer is nothing urgent. This realization calms the nervous system. Another important step is limiting problem solving. Many loops disguise themselves as problem solving. The mind says, "I am thinking because I need to figure this out." But true problem solving is finite. Loops are endless. If thinking does not lead to action or clarity, it is not problem solving. You can set boundaries with your mind. You can say, "I will think about this later at a specific time." This containment reduces intrusion. The mind relaxes when it knows there is a container. Another key is changing environment. Movement breaks loops. Walking, stretching, changing location interrupts mental patterns. Loops are easier to break when the body is engaged. This is why physical activity helps mental health. Breaking loops also involves compassion. When you criticize yourself for looping, you add another loop. You say, "Why am I like this?" This compounds the pattern. Compassion says, "This is happening, and I can work with it." Gentleness is more effective than force. Over time, as you practice interruption, grounding, and redirection, loops lose frequency and intensity. They may still appear, but they do not dominate. You recover faster. This recovery builds confidence. Breaking negative thought loops is not about eliminating them forever. It is about not being trapped by them. Each time you step out, you weaken the habit. Habits fade when not reinforced. As this part closes, remember this. Negative thought loops feel powerful because they are familiar, not because they are true. You do not break them by winning arguments. You break them by stepping out of repetition. And every time you do, you reclaim mental space, focus, and peace. Focus is the gatekeeper of your mental world. What you focus on determines what you feel, how you think, and ultimately how you act. Attention is not just a mental skill. It is a form of power. Whoever controls your attention controls your inner experience. This is why mastering focus is essential if you want to win every mental battle. Most people believe their biggest problem is negative thinking. In reality, their biggest problem is uncontrolled attention. The mind wanders, pulls, fixates, and reacts without permission. Thoughts gain power not because they are strong, but because attention stays with them. Attention is what feeds thought. If you want to master your thoughts, you must first master where your attention rests. The modern world is designed to fracture attention. Notifications, information, noise comparison, urgency, and endless stimulation constantly pull the mind outward. Over time, this weakens the ability to sustain focus. When focus weakens, thoughts scatter. When thoughts scatter, anxiety increases. A scattered mind is an exhausted mind. Mastering focus does not mean forcing concentration through willpower. Willpower is limited. Focus is trained through structure, awareness, and repetition. It is a skill that strengthens gradually when treated correctly. The first truth about attention is this: attention naturally follows emotion. Whatever carries emotional charge pulls focus. Fear grabs attention faster than calm. Threat grabs attention faster than opportunity. This is survival wiring. To master focus, you must regulate emotion. When the nervous system is calm, attention stabilizes. When the nervous system is activated, attention fragments. This is why calming the body is not optional, it is foundational. Slow breathing, relaxed posture, and grounding sensations signal safety. Safety allows attention to settle. Another important truth is that attention is directional. It goes where you send it. But if you are not consciously directing it, habit directs it for you. Habitual attention often goes to worry, comparison, memory, or anticipation. Mastery begins when you notice where your attention goes by default. You begin to observe patterns. You notice that certain thoughts always pull you in. Certain emotions always hijack focus. This observation creates choice. Choice changes everything. Mastering focus also requires understanding that multitasking is a myth. The mind does not do multiple things well at once. It switches rapidly. The switching drains energy and reduces clarity. When attention is split, quality suffers. Single-task focus restores depth. Depth improves performance, confidence, and satisfaction. To train focus, you must practice staying with one thing at a time. This can be as simple as fully listening during a conversation, fully feeling your breath, fully engaging with one task. Each moment of sustained attention strengthens the muscle. Another critical element is reducing internal distraction. Internal distraction is often more disruptive than external noise. Thoughts interrupt constantly: planning, judging, remembering, worrying. You do not need to eliminate these thoughts. You need to stop following them automatically. Each time you notice attention drifting and gently bring it back, you strengthen focus. The bringing back is the training, not the staying. It is important. Focus is built through redirection, not perfection. Another aspect of mastering attention is intentional input. What you consume shapes what you think about. Constant exposure to alarming, negative, or shallow content trains attention to seek stimulation rather than depth. You must be selective with input. This does not mean avoiding information. It means choosing it consciously. Quality input supports quality focus. Another powerful practice is setting attention anchors. An anchor is something you return to when attention drifts. Breath, sensation, posture, sound, or a chosen object of focus. Anchors provide stability. When the mind wanders, you return to the anchor without frustration. Over time, attention learns to settle more quickly. Attention also strengthens when you reduce urgency. Urgency fragments focus. The belief that everything must be handled immediately creates constant interruption. Most things are not urgent. Learning to delay response restores focus. You do not need to answer immediately. You do not need to think everything through right now. You give yourself permission to focus on what is in front of you. This permission reduces mental noise. Mastering focus also involves energy management. Focus requires energy. When you are exhausted, attention collapses. Rest, nutrition, movement, and sleep are not luxuries. They are prerequisites for mental mastery. A tired mind cannot focus consistently. Another key element is emotional clarity. When emotions are unresolved, they pull attention repeatedly. You think about what you feel instead of feeling it. This keeps attention trapped. Allowing emotions to be felt fully without narrative frees attention. Attention also sharpens when identity loosens. When you take thoughts personally, attention sticks to them. When you see thoughts as mental events, attention moves freely. This non-identification is powerful. Mastering focus also improves emotional regulation. When attention is stable, emotions are less volatile. You are not constantly jumping between stimuli. You respond rather than react. Calm follows focus. Another important aspect is patience. Focus improves gradually. You do not force it. you train it gently. Impatience creates frustration. Frustration disrupts focus. Progress comes from consistency, not intensity. Mastering attention also requires boundaries with technology. Constant checking trains distraction. Even brief interruptions degrade focus significantly. Creating uninterrupted periods strengthens mental endurance. Silence is training. Another powerful tool is intention. Before starting a task, you set a clear intention. This gives attention direction. Without intention, attention wanders. Clarity stabilizes focus. Focus also strengthens through embodiment. When you bring attention into the body rather than staying in thought, the mind quiets. Physical sensation anchors attention in the present. The present moment is where focus lives. Another benefit of mastering focus is increased confidence. When attention is stable, you trust yourself to stay engaged. This trust reduces anxiety. An anxious mind fears losing control. A focused mind feels grounded. Mastering focus also improves decision-making. You consider options clearly. You are not rushed by emotion. You choose deliberately. Another subtle shift occurs when focus strengthens. Time perception changes. You feel less rushed. Moments feel fuller. You experience flow. Flow is sustained attention with low resistance. Flow is deeply satisfying. Mastering focus also means knowing when to rest attention. Continuous focus without rest leads to fatigue. Alternating focus and rest maintains performance. Rest is part of discipline. Another important practice is reflecting on where your attention went during the day. Without judgment, you notice patterns. Awareness itself improves future focus. What you notice changes. As focus improves, mental battles lose intensity. Negative thoughts still appear, but they do not dominate. Attention does not stick. You move on. This freedom feels powerful. Mastering focus is not about becoming rigid. It is about becoming intentional. You choose where your mind goes. Attention is your most valuable resource. Protecting it protects your peace. As this part closes, remember this. You do not win mental battles by fighting thoughts. You win by choosing where your attention rests. Where attention goes, life follows. Master your attention, and you master your mind. This is the turning point. From here, mental strength becomes reliable rather than occasional, and the battlefield begins to quiet. Emotional control is often misunderstood. Many people think it means suppressing feelings, staying expressionless, or forcing calm at all costs. In reality, emotional control has nothing to do with suppression. Suppression hides emotion and stores pressure. True emotional control is regulation. It is the ability to experience emotion without being controlled by it. Mental discipline is what makes this possible. Emotions do not appear randomly. They are responses to thoughts, interpretations, memories, and expectations. When the mind is undisciplined, emotions rise quickly, intensely, and unpredictably. When the mind is disciplined, emotions still arise, but they are contained, processed, and released. Discipline creates space. Space creates choice. Most people feel controlled by emotion because they believe emotion arrives first and thought comes later. In many cases, the opposite is true. A thought flashes automatically, often below awareness. The body reacts. Emotion follows. Because the thought was unnoticed, emotion feels sudden and overwhelming. Mental discipline brings awareness to the beginning of this chain. When you learn to notice thoughts, early emotions lose intensity. You interrupt the process before it escalates. This does not mean emotion disappears. It means it does not hijack you. Emotional control begins with slowing down. Emotion accelerates everything. Heart rate increases, breath shortens, attention narrows. Slowing the body slows the emotion. Slow breathing, relaxed posture, and grounded attention send signals of safety. The mind responds to these signals. Mental discipline also involves naming emotions. When you name an emotion, it shifts from being an experience to being an object of awareness. You say, this is anger, this is anxiety, this is frustration. Naming creates distance. Distance reduces intensity. Another key aspect of emotional control is understanding that emotions are temporary. They feel permanent when you are inside them, but they always change. Mental discipline reminds you of this truth during activation. You stop saying this will not end and start saying this is passing. This shift alone reduces panic. Emotional discipline also requires accepting emotion rather than fighting it. Resistance strengthens emotion. Acceptance allows it to move. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means allowing the experience without adding narrative. Narrative fuels emotion. When you stop telling stories about why you feel what it means and what will happen next, emotion begins to soften. You feel sensation rather than identity. Mental discipline teaches you to separate sensation from interpretation. Another important element is impulse control. Emotions often come with urges. Urges to speak, react, escape, attack, or withdraw. Discipline allows you to pause before acting. You feel the urge without obeying it immediately. This pause is power. You learn that urges peak and fall if not acted upon. This realization builds confidence. You trust yourself to ride emotional waves without losing control. Confidence reduces fear of emotion. Emotional control also improves when you reduce internal judgment. Judging yourself for feeling a certain way adds another layer of emotion. You feel angry, then feel ashamed for being angry. This compounds distress. Discipline replaces judgment with observation. You say, "This is what is happening, and I can handle it." Another critical component is expectation management. Many emotional reactions come from unmet expectations. When reality deviates from expectation, frustration arises. Discipline involves noticing expectations early and loosening attachment to them. Flexibility reduces emotional shock. Mental discipline also includes perspective. Emotions narrow perspective. Everything feels urgent and personal. Discipline widens perspective. You remember that this moment is part of a larger context, that you have survived similar feelings before. This memory calms the nervous system. Another powerful practice is delaying response. You do not need to respond emotionally in the moment. Many situations resolve themselves with time. Giving yourself permission to wait reduces pressure. Waiting is not avoidance. It is regulation. Emotional control also depends on identity. When emotions define who you are, they become heavy. Discipline loosens identity attachment. You stop saying "I am angry" and start saying "anger is present." This language matters. You are not your emotion. You are the one experiencing it. Mental discipline also involves consistency. Emotional control is not achieved through one technique. It is built through repeated practice. Each time you regulate, instead of react, you strengthen the pattern. Patterns become habits. Habits become identity. Another important aspect is physical regulation. The body and mind are deeply connected. Lack of sleep, poor nutrition, and chronic stress reduce emotional control. Discipline includes caring for the body. A regulated body supports a regulated mind. Emotional discipline also improves communication. When you are regulated, you express yourself clearly. You do not attack or withdraw. You state needs calmly. This reduces conflict and misunderstanding. Calm communication builds trust. Another subtle benefit of emotional control is reduced rumination. When emotions are processed rather than suppressed, they do not linger. You do not replay situations endlessly. You move on. Movement restores peace. Mental discipline also teaches you to choose emotional exposure intentionally. You do not avoid all intensity, but you do not seek unnecessary drama. You protect your emotional environment. This protection preserves energy. Another powerful shift occurs when you realize that emotions are signals, not directives. They inform you about needs, boundaries, and values. Discipline allows you to listen without being ruled. You respond intelligently rather than impulsively. Emotional control also strengthens resilience. Setbacks hurt, but do not devastate. Criticism stings, but does not define. Pressure exists, but does not overwhelm. This resilience allows growth. Mental discipline also reduces emotional fatigue. When you stop fighting yourself internally, energy returns. You feel lighter, clearer, and more stable. Stability improves performance. Another key aspect is patience with yourself. Emotional control improves gradually. You will still have moments of reactivity. These moments are not failure. They are feedback. Feedback guides training. When you reflect, rather than judge, you improve faster. Mental discipline also brings freedom. You are no longer afraid of emotions. Fear of emotion is what gives it power. When fear dissolves, emotion becomes manageable. You stop racing against life. As emotional control strengthens, you may notice that others respond differently to you. Your calm steadies interactions. Your presence de-escalates conflict. You become a stabilizing force. This influence is quiet but strong. Emotional control also allows you to align action with values. You act according to what matters rather than how you feel in the moment. This alignment creates integrity. Integrity creates self-respect. Self-respect reinforces emotional control. As this part closes, remember this clearly. Emotional control is not about suppressing feeling. It is about training the mind to hold emotion wisely. Mental discipline gives you that ability. You feel without losing yourself. You respond without regret. You remain steady without becoming cold. And with each moment of discipline, the mental battlefield becomes quieter, calmer, and more manageable. From here, mastery deepens. At the deepest level of the mental battlefield lie beliefs. Beliefs are not just thoughts you think. They are thoughts you live from. They shape perception, influence, emotion, guide behavior, and quietly determine what you believe is possible for you. If thoughts are passing, whether beliefs are the climate, an inner dialogue is the voice that reinforces that climate every day. To master your mind fully, you must understand this clearly. You do not fight beliefs directly. You outgrow them by changing the way you relate to your inner dialogue. Most people assume their beliefs are true because they feel familiar. Familiarity creates trust. Trust creates obedience. Over time, beliefs stop feeling like opinions and start feeling like facts. This is why beliefs are powerful, and also why they can be limiting. Beliefs form early. They are shaped by experience, repetition, emotion, and interpretation. A few intense moments can imprint a belief that lasts decades. A child who feels unseen may form the belief, "I am not important." A person who fails publicly may form the belief, "I am not capable." These beliefs are not chosen consciously. They are learned emotionally. Once formed beliefs seek confirmation. The mind filters experience to reinforce what it already believes. Evidence that supports the belief is highlighted. Evidence that contradicts it is ignored. This confirmation bias makes beliefs feel unshakable. Inner dialogue is the mechanism through which beliefs are reinforced. The voice in your head repeats interpretations, judgments, and predictions based on what it already assumes to be true. Over time, this dialogue becomes automatic. You no longer question it. You identify with it. Reprogramming beliefs begins by changing this relationship. You do not silence inner dialogue. You listen differently. The first step is awareness. You begin to notice how you speak to yourself. Not just what you say, but the tone. Is it harsh, impatient, doubtful, dismissive, or encouraging, grounded, and clear? Tone matters more than content. A thought that says "be careful" can feel supportive or threatening depending on tone. Most inner dialogue is not neutral. It carries emotional charge. That charge comes from belief. When you notice inner dialogue, you begin to hear patterns. You hear repeated phrases. Always, never, not enough, too late, pointless. These are belief markers. They reveal the assumptions operating beneath the surface. Awareness creates choice. Without awareness, inner dialogue runs you. With awareness, you begin to lead. Another crucial understanding is this. You do not need to replace negative dialogue with forced positivity. Forced positivity creates resistance. The mind rejects what feels untrue. Reprogramming works through realism and consistency, not exaggeration. You move from absolute statements to grounded ones. Instead of "I always fail," you move to "this is challenging and I am learning." Instead of "I am not good enough," you move to "I am improving with practice." These statements are believable. Believable statements are accepted. Belief change happens gradually through repetition and experience. Inner dialogue also changes when you change behavior. Action is powerful evidence. Each time you act against an old belief, you weaken it. You do not need to feel confident to act. You act and confidence follows. Behavior updates belief. Another key aspect of reprogramming is separating identity from performance. Many beliefs are tied to outcomes. Success means I am worthy. Failure means I am not. This creates emotional volatility. Mental mastery loosens this link. You begin to value effort, learning, and alignment rather than outcome alone. This stabilizes identity. When identity is stable, beliefs soften. Inner dialogue also becomes kinder when you stop using it as punishment. Many people speak harshly to themselves, believing it will motivate improvement. In reality, harsh dialogue creates fear, not growth. Fear narrows thinking. Growth requires safety. Replacing punishment with guidance changes everything. You speak to yourself as a coach rather than a critic. Clear, firm, and supportive. This does not mean indulgence. It means effectiveness. Another powerful practice is questioning beliefs gently. You do not argue. You inquire. You ask, where did this belief come from? Is it always true? Does it serve me now? What would I do if I did not believe this? Questions create flexibility. Beliefs weaken when examined. Inner dialogue also changes when you adjust language. Language shapes perception. Small shifts matter. Moving from must to prefer, from should to choose, from impossible to challenging, these shifts reduce pressure. Reduced pressure improves performance. Reprogramming beliefs also requires emotional regulation. Beliefs are emotional structures. Trying to change them while emotionally activated is difficult. Calm allows integration. You regulate first, then reflect. Another important element is consistency. Beliefs do not change through insight alone. They change through repeated new experiences, interpreted differently. You must catch old dialogue and redirect gently again and again. This repetition builds new neural pathways. Neural pathways strengthen through use. Inner dialogue also improves when you limit exposure to reinforcing inputs. Constant comparison, criticism, or negativity strengthens limiting beliefs. Choosing environments, content, and relationships that support growth accelerates change. Your environment trains your beliefs. Another aspect of reprogramming is patience. Beliefs formed over years do not dissolve overnight. Impatience creates frustration. Frustration reinforces old beliefs. Progress comes from persistence. Inner dialogue also becomes more accurate when you separate fact from interpretation. Many beliefs are interpretations presented as facts. You learn to say, this is my interpretation, not reality. This clarity reduces emotional intensity. Clarity restores choice. Reprogramming also involves updating beliefs to match your current capacity. Old beliefs may have been protective once. They may no longer apply. Thank them and release them. You are allowed to outgrow your past. Inner dialogue often resists change because it feels like loss of control. The mind fears uncertainty. Reassure it. Change does not remove safety. It restores accuracy. Another powerful shift is shifting from outcome-based identity to process-based identity. You become someone who shows up, practices, learns, and adapts. This identity supports resilience. Resilience weakens limiting beliefs. Inner dialogue also becomes calmer when you stop narrating everything. Constant narration feeds mental noise. Silence allows integration. You do not need to comment on every experience. Another important practice is self-acknowledgement. You acknowledge effort, progress, and alignment. Not to inflate ego, but to reinforce growth. The mind learns through recognition. What you acknowledge grows. Reprogramming beliefs also means choosing new reference points. Instead of comparing to extremes, you compare to your past self. This creates realistic motivation. Motivation grounded in reality lasts. Inner dialogue also improves when you accept discomfort as part of growth. Many limiting beliefs aim to avoid discomfort. When you accept discomfort, beliefs lose their function. Discomfort becomes information, not threat. As beliefs shift, inner dialogue softens. The voice becomes less urgent, less harsh, more grounded. You begin to trust yourself. This trust stabilizes the mind. Mental battles decrease not because challenges disappear, but because your inner response changes. You no longer attack yourself for struggling. You support yourself through it. This support is strength. As this part closes, remember this truth. You are not required to believe everything you think. You are not required to obey the voice in your head. You can listen. You can guide. You can choose. Reprogramming beliefs is not about becoming someone else. It is about removing what no longer fits. And as inner dialogue changes, the battlefield shifts. The mind becomes less hostile, more cooperative, and mastery becomes not something you fight for, but something you embody. Pressure is unavoidable. It appears when expectations rise, when stakes feel high, when time feels limited, and when outcomes matter. Pressure shows up in work relationships, decisions, performance, and uncertainty. It is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something matters. The question is not how to avoid pressure. The question is how to remain mentally strong inside it. Mental strength under pressure is not about toughness or emotional numbness. It is about stability. It is about staying clear when others rush, grounded, when others panic, and focused when others scatter. This kind of strength is built not through force but through preparation, awareness, and discipline. Pressure exposes patterns. When pressure rises, your default mental habits become visible. If your mind tends toward overthinking, pressure amplifies it. If your mind tends toward doubt, pressure magnifies it. If your mind tends toward avoidance, pressure intensifies it. Pressure does not create weakness. It reveals it. This is good news. What can be revealed can be trained. Staying mentally strong under pressure begins with understanding what pressure actually is. Pressure is a combination of expectation, uncertainty, and emotional investment. You want a certain outcome. You are not sure how it will unfold, and the result feels important to your identity or future. The mind reacts by trying to regain control. It speeds up thinking, tightens focus, and narrows perspective. This reaction was useful for survival. In modern contexts, it often reduces performance. Mental strength means resisting this narrowing. The first skill under pressure is slowing down internally, even when things are moving fast externally. This does not mean acting slowly. It means thinking clearly. Clear thinking requires a regulated nervous system. When pressure hits, the body reacts first. Heart rate increases, breath shortens, muscles tense. If you do not regulate the body, the mind cannot stabilize. This is why mental strength always begins with physical awareness. You notice your breath. You lengthen it. You feel your posture. You ground your attention. These small actions signal safety. Safety allows the thinking mind to stay online. Without this step, pressure hijacks cognition. Another key aspect of mental strength is accepting pressure rather than resisting it. Resistance adds tension. When you tell yourself this should not be happening, pressure doubles. Acceptance says this is pressure and I can function inside it. Acceptance reduces friction. Pressure also feeds on urgency. The mind says this must be resolved now. Urgency creates mistakes. Mental strength questions urgency. It asks what actually needs immediate action and what can wait. Not everything under pressure is urgent. Creating internal pacing stabilizes performance. Another important skill is narrowing focus intentionally rather than reactively. Pressure often scatters attention. You think about outcomes, consequences, opinions, and failure. Mental strength brings attention back to the next controllable step. You do not focus on winning. You focus on execution. Execution is controllable. Outcomes are not. This shift reduces overwhelm. Mental strength under pressure also requires detachment from identity. When pressure threatens, your sense of self-fear intensifies. You feel that failure would define you. This belief makes pressure unbearable. Detachment says this outcome does not define who I am. This does not reduce effort. it reduces fear. When fear decreases, performance improves. Another critical aspect is self-talk under pressure. The inner dialogue often becomes harsh, urgent, or catastrophic. You tell yourself you cannot mess this up, or this is your only chance. This language increases anxiety. Mental strength involves guiding inner dialogue deliberately. You speak in stabilizing terms. You say, stay present, focus on the process, breathe one step at a time. This is not motivational hype. It is regulation. Language shapes state. Mental strength also involves preparation. You cannot expect to perform calmly under pressure if you never practice regulation when things are calm. Training happens outside pressure so that it is available inside pressure. This includes practicing focus, discipline, emotional regulation, and thought awareness regularly. Pressure reveals preparation. Another powerful skill is reframing pressure. Instead of seeing pressure as threat, you see it as information. Pressure signals importance, engagement, and opportunity. This reframe does not eliminate discomfort, but changes interpretation. Interpretation determines response. Mental strength also involves flexibility. Under pressure, rigid plans often fail. Rigid thinking collapses when conditions change. Flexible thinking adapts. You adjust based on feedback. Adaptability is strength. Another element is tolerance for discomfort. Pressure feels uncomfortable. Trying to eliminate discomfort increases stress. Mental strength allows discomfort to exist without panic. You say, I can feel this and still function. This belief reduces intensity. Mental strength also includes knowing when to pause. Pausing under pressure feels counterintuitive. The mind wants action, but a brief pause can prevent costly mistakes. Pausing allows reassessment. Pauses restore clarity. Another important aspect is limiting mental time travel. Under pressure, the mind jumps to future consequences or past failures. This pulls attention away from the present task. Mental strength anchors attention in now. Now is where action happens. Another key is emotional containment. Emotions under pressure can spill over into communication, behavior, and decision-making. Containment does not mean suppression. It means holding emotion without acting it out. You feel internally and act externally with intention. This containment preserves professionalism and effectiveness. Mental strength also involves choosing silence strategically. You do not need to respond immediately to everything. Silence can create space and reduce escalation. Silence under pressure is often strength, not weakness. Another factor is energy conservation. Pressure drains energy quickly. Mental strength involves managing energy by reducing unnecessary mental activity. You stop rehearsing scenarios, arguing internally, or predicting outcomes. You focus on what is in front of you. Another important practice is grounding identity in values rather than outcomes. When your actions align with values, pressure becomes more tolerable. You can say, regardless of outcome, I acted with integrity. This grounding stabilizes self-respect. Mental strength under pressure also means accepting mistakes without collapse. Errors may occur. Mental strength responds with correction, not self-attack. Self-attack worsens performance. Learning mindset sustains performance. Another element is emotional recovery. After pressure passes, mentally strong individuals recover quickly. They do not replay endlessly. They extract lessons and move on. Recovery prevents burnout. Mental strength also requires boundaries. You do not expose yourself to unnecessary pressure constantly. You choose challenges intentionally. You rest between demands. Sustainable strength requires rest. Another subtle but powerful aspect is trusting your training. Under pressure, doubt arises. Mental strength recalls preparation. You trust that what you practiced will be available. Trust quiets doubt. Mental strength also improves when you stop personalizing external chaos. Others may panic, complain, or project. You remain centered. You do not absorb their state. Your stability becomes an anchor. Another critical shift is moving from outcome obsession to presence. Presence improves performance. Anxiety degrades it. Presence comes from attention and regulation. You perform best when you are here, not ahead. Mental strength also involves self-permission to be human. You allow nerves. You allow intensity. You do not demand perfection. This permission reduces pressure. Pressure increases when perfection is demanded. Another aspect is practicing under simulated pressure. You deliberately place yourself in challenging situations to train regulation. This builds confidence. Confidence comes from experience. Mental strength also means knowing your limits. Pushing beyond limits under pressure leads to collapse. Knowing when to step back is wisdom. Wisdom is strength. Another important practice is reflecting after pressure moments. You review without judgment. You notice what helped and what hindered. This reflection refines skill. Refinement builds mastery. Mental strength under pressure also changes how you carry yourself. Your posture steadies. Your voice slows. Your presence becomes grounded. Others feel this. Presence influences environments. Another benefit is reduced fear of pressure. When you know you can function under pressure, you stop dreading it. Anticipatory anxiety decreases. This confidence changes how you approach challenges. Mental strength also allows enjoyment of challenge. Pressure becomes engaging rather than threatening. You experience focus flow and absorption. Challenge becomes growth. Another key is remembering that pressure is temporary. No moment lasts forever. Mental strength holds this perspective during intensity. Perspective calms urgency. As mental strength develops, you notice that fewer things feel overwhelming. Your threshold increases. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. Capacity expands. Mental strength also improves leadership. Others look to you in pressure. Your calm influences decisions. Your clarity stabilizes groups. Leadership begins with self-leadership. Mental strength does not mean you never feel pressure. It means pressure does not control you. You feel it and function anyway. Mastery of the mind is not a single victory. It is a way of living. It is the gradual shift from being controlled by inner forces to calmly directing them. By the time you reach this stage, the mental battlefield no longer feels chaotic or hostile. It feels familiar, navigable, and increasingly quiet. You are no longer fighting your mind. You are leading it. Becoming the master of your inner world does not mean you never struggle. It means struggle no longer defines you. Thoughts still arise. Emotions still move. Pressure still appears. The difference is that none of these take control without your consent. This is true mastery. Inner mastery begins with identity. You stop identifying as someone who is anxious, distracted, reactive, or overwhelmed. You start identifying as someone who observes, chooses, and responds. This identity shift is subtle but powerful. Identity determines behavior more than effort ever could. When you see yourself as the observer, you naturally pause. When you see yourself as the chooser, you naturally slow down. When you see yourself as the leader of your inner world, you naturally take responsibility. Responsibility here does not mean blame. It means agency. Agency restores power. Mastery also means your inner world becomes a place of clarity rather than conflict. Many people live with constant internal tension, arguing with themselves, doubting themselves, pushing and pulling internally. This friction drains energy. Inner mastery reduces friction. Thoughts still appear, but they do not clash endlessly. Emotions still arise, but they are processed rather than resisted. Decisions still require effort, but they are not paralyzed by doubt. This harmony creates peace. Peace here is not passive. It is dynamic stability. It allows movement without chaos, growth without self-attack, ambition without anxiety. Becoming master of your inner world also means trusting yourself deeply. Trust your ability to handle discomfort, uncertainty, and emotion. This trust eliminates much of the fear that fuels mental struggle. Fear fades when trust grows. Trust is built through experience. Each time you regulate instead of react. Each time you choose focus over rumination. Each time you act in alignment despite doubt. These moments accumulate. Accumulation creates confidence. Inner mastery also changes how you relate to silence. Silence no longer feels uncomfortable or empty. It feels grounding. You are no longer afraid of being alone with your thoughts because you know how to relate to them. Silence becomes space rather than threat. Space allows insight. Insight allows wisdom. Mastery also involves humility. You recognize that the mind will always generate content. You do not aim for perfection. You aim for awareness. This humility prevents frustration and supports consistency. Consistency beats intensity. Becoming master of your inner world also means you stop outsourcing your emotional regulation. You no longer rely on distraction, validation, or control to feel okay. You generate stability internally. This independence is freedom. Freedom does not mean isolation. It means connection without dependence. You relate to others from fullness rather than need. This changes relationships profoundly. You listen more deeply. You react less. You communicate clearly. You do not seek to win emotionally. You seek understanding or disengagement when needed. Inner mastery also improves integrity. You act according to values rather than impulse. This alignment strengthens self-respect. Self-respect stabilizes the mind. When you respect yourself, mental chaos decreases. Another key aspect of mastery is perspective. You stop seeing thoughts as commands and start seeing them as weather. Some days are stormy, some are clear. You adapt accordingly. You do not judge the weather, you prepare for it. Mastery also involves patience with process. You understand that mental strength develops gradually. You stop rushing yourself. You stop demanding instant change. Patience reduces internal pressure. Pressure is often self-created. Becoming master of your inner world also means learning when not to engage mentally. Not every thought deserves attention. Not every emotion requires analysis. Sometimes the most powerful move is letting things pass. Letting pass is not avoidance. It is discernment. Discernment is intelligence. Inner mastery also changes how you experience success and failure. Success does not inflate you. Failure does not crush you. Remain centered. You learn and continue. This steadiness allows long-term growth. Another profound shift is how you experience time. You spend less time replaying the past and worrying about the future. You live more in the present. The present feels fuller, calmer, and more manageable. Life happens here. Mastery returns you here. Becoming master of your inner world also means accepting your humanity fully. You allow emotion without shame. You allow struggle without self-attack. You allow rest without guilt. This acceptance removes internal conflict. Conflict is the root of much suffering. Inner mastery does not eliminate challenges. It changes how you meet them. Challenges become experiences rather than threats. You engage with curiosity rather than fear. Curiosity opens the mind. Fear closes it. Mastery also brings clarity of priorities. When the mind is less noisy, you know what matters. You stop wasting energy on what does not align. You choose your battles carefully. Choosing wisely preserves strength. Another important element is self-leadership. You guide yourself with calm authority. You do not bully or abandon yourself. You lead yourself the way a strong leader leads others, with firmness, clarity, and care. This internal leadership stabilizes everything. Inner mastery also enhances creativity. When the mind is not constantly defensive, it opens. Ideas flow. Insight arises. You become more inventive and flexible. Creativity thrives in safety. Mastery creates safety. Another shift is emotional maturity. You stop expecting others to manage your emotions. Stop blaming circumstances for your inner state. You take ownership. Ownership empowers. Empowerment reduces helplessness. Becoming master of your inner world also means you are less reactive to the world. News, opinions, conflict, and chaos lose their grip. You remain informed, but not consumed. This balance protects mental health. Inner mastery also improves physical health. Reduced stress improves sleep, digestion, immunity, and energy. The body responds to mental regulation. Mind and body are one system. Another benefit is resilience. So when adversity arrives, you do not collapse. You feel the impact and recover. Recovery becomes faster. Scars become wisdom. Wisdom replaces fear. Becoming master of your inner world also changes how you pursue goals. You work steadily without desperation. You enjoy progress rather than rushing outcomes. Enjoyment sustains effort. Effort without enjoyment leads to burnout. Mastery also brings gratitude. When the mind quiets, you notice more. Small moments feel richer. You appreciate presence. Gratitude grounds the mind. Another key aspect is freedom from constant self-evaluation. You stop measuring yourself endlessly. You allow yourself to exist without judgment. This relief is profound. Inner mastery also means you stop fighting yourself. You become an ally to your own growth. Growth accelerates when resistance ends. Resistance drains energy. Ending resistance restores flow. As you integrate everything from this journey, remember this truth. You were never meant to silence your mind. You were meant to understand it. You were never meant to eliminate emotion. You were meant to relate to it wisely. Mastery is relationship. Relationship with thought, relationship with emotion, relationship with attention, relationship with self. When these relationships are healthy, the battlefield disappears. What remains is clarity, calm, choice. This is not a destination you arrive at once. It is a way you live daily. Some days you will feel more centered than others. That is natural. Mastery is not perfection. It is consistency. And consistency builds strength. As this audiobook closes, understand this clearly. You already have everything you need to master your inner world. Awareness, discipline, patience, and compassion. You do not need a new mind. You need a new relationship with the one you have. Lead it, train it, respect it. It will become your greatest ally. This is how you win every mental battle. Not by force, but by mastery.